Socrates. Some life-changing quotes from Socrates that can enlighten life and work. An unconsidered life is not one worth living. Remember that there is nothing stable in human affairs. Therefore avoid undue elation in prosperity, or undue depression in adversity. Smart people learn from everything and everyone. Average people from their experiences. Stupid people already have all the answers. And so they grow richer and richer, and the more they think of making a fortune the less they think of virtue. For when riches and virtue are placed together in the scales of the balance, the one always rises as the other falls. The true champion of justice, if he intends to survive even for a short time, must necessarily confine himself to private life and leave politics alone. I desire only to know the truth, and to live as well as I can. And, to the utmost of my power, I exhort all other men to do the same. I exhort you also to take part in the great combat, which is the combat of life, and greater than every other earthly conflict. Socrates. As for me, all I know is that I know nothing, for when I don't know what justice is, I'll hardly know whether it is a kind of virtue or not, or whether a person who has it is happy or unhappy. I soon realized that poets do not compose their poems with knowledge, but by some inborn talent and by inspiration, like seers and prophets who also say many fine things without any understanding of what they say. I do believe that there are gods, and in a far higher sense than that in which any of my accusers believe in them. No one knows whether death may not be the greatest of all blessings for a man, yet men fear it as if they knew it was the greatest of evils. Remember, no human condition is ever permanent. Then you will not be overjoyed in good fortune, nor too sorrowful in misfortune. Mankind is made of two kinds of people. Wise people who know they're fools, and fools who think they are wise. Socrates. Neither in war nor yet at law ought any man to use every way of escaping death. For often in battle there is no doubt that if a man will throw away his arms and fall on his knees before his pursuers he may escape death. And in other dangers there are other ways of escaping death if a man is willing to say and do anything. The difficulty, my friends, is not in avoiding death but in avoiding unrighteousness, for that runs faster than death. For the fear of death is indeed the pretense of wisdom, and not real wisdom, being a pretense of knowing the unknown, and no one know whether death, which men in their fear apprehend to be the greatest evil, may not be the greatest good. Is not this ignorance of a disgraceful sort, the ignorance which is the conceit that a man knows that he does not know? And in this respect only I believe myself to differ from men in general, and may perhaps claim to be wiser than they are. That whereas I know but little of the world below, I do not suppose that I know Socrates.
Please like, share and subscribe our channel and click on bell icon.
A man who really fights for justice must lead a private, not a public, life if he is to survive for even a short time. I know nothing except the fact of my ignorance. The law presumably says that it is finest to keep as quiet as possible in misfortunes and not be irritated, since the good and bad in such things aren't plain, nor does taking it hard get one anywhere, not are any of the human things worthy of great seriousness. One must accept the fall of the dice and settle one's affairs accordingly, in whatever way argument declares would be best. One must not behave like children who have stumbled and who hold on to the hurt place and spend their time in crying out. Rather, one must always habituate the soul to turn as quickly as possible to curing and setting aright what has fallen and is sick, doing away with lament by medicine. Socrates. God would seem to indicate to us and not allow us to doubt that these beautiful poems are not human, or the work of man, but divine and the work of God, and that the poets are only the interpreters of the gods. I do nothing but go about persuading you all, old and young alike, not to take thought for your persons or your properties, but and chiefly to care about the greatest improvement of the soul. I tell you that virtue is not given by money, but that from virtue comes money and every other good of man. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. How many things can I do without? Wisdom is knowing you know nothing. Nobody is qualified to become a statesman who is entirely ignorant of the problem of wheat. Socrates. Do you feel no compunction, Socrates, at having followed a line of action which puts you in danger of the death penalty? I might fairly reply to him, you are mistaken, my friend, if you think that a man who is worth anything ought to spend his time weighing up the prospects of life and death. He has only one thing to consider in performing any action, that is, whether he is acting rightly or wrongly, like a good man or a bad one. Employ your time in improving yourself by other men's writings, so that you shall gain easily what others have labored hard for. One thing only I know, and that is that I know nothing. By far the greatest and most admirable form of wisdom is that needed to plan and beautify cities and human communities. Wealth does not bring goodness, but goodness brings wealth and every other blessing, both to the individual and to the state. Socrates. And the same things look bent and straight when seen in water and out of it, and also both concave and convex, due to the sights being misled by the colors, and every sort of confusion of this kind is plainly in our soul. And, then, it is because they take advantage of this affection in our nature that shadow painting, and puppeteering, and many other tricks of the kind fall nothing short of wizardry. Worthless people live only to eat and drink. People of worth eat and drink only to live. How can you wonder your travels do you no good, when you carry yourself around with you? The only thing I know for sure is that I know nothing at all. For sure, programming is not about what you know, it's about what you can figure out. I don't know why I did it. I don't know why I enjoyed it, and I don't know why I'll do it again. Socrates. Nasce te ipsum. Everything is plainer when spoken than when unspoken. Each individual can only do one thing well. He can't do lots of things. If he tries, he will be jack of all trades, and master of none. The really important thing is not live, but to live well. The answer I gave myself in the oracle was that it was to my advantage to be as I am. To fear death, gentlemen, is no other than to think oneself wise when one is not, to think one knows what one does not know. Athenian men, I respect and love you, but I shall obey the god rather than you. What I do not know, I do not think I know. True wisdom comes to each of us when we realize how little we understand about life, ourselves, and the world around us. The great honor in the world is to be what we pretend to be, having the fewest wants. I am nearest to the gods. Socrates. The hour of departure has arrived, and we go our ways, I to die, and you to live. Which is better only God knows. Is there anyone to whom you entrust a greater number of serious matters than your wife? And is there anyone with whom you have fewer conversations? As for me, all I know is that I know nothing. True wisdom comes to each of us when we realize how little we understand about life, ourselves, and the world around us. It is only in death that we are truly cured of the sickness of life. Conocerse a uno mismo, es el principio fundamental de la verdadera sabiduría humana. One thing only I know, and that is that I know nothing. The way to gain a good reputation is to endeavor to be what you desire to appear. A life without criticism and status is not worth living. Socrates. We approach truth only inasmuch as we depart from life. For what do we, who love truth, strive after in life? To free ourselves from the body, and from all the evil that is caused by the life of the body. If so, then how can we fail to be glad when death comes to us? The wise man seeks death all his life, and therefore death is not terrible to him. I shall never cease from the practice and teaching of philosophy, exhorting anyone whom I meet after my manner, and convincing him, saying, O my friend, why do you who are a citizen of the great and mighty and wise city of Athens, care so much about laying up the greatest amount of money and honor and reputation, and so little about wisdom and truth and the greatest improvement of the soul, which you never regard or heed at all? Are you not ashamed of this, and in knowing that you know nothing makes you the smartest of all? Socrates. Would that the majority could inflict the greatest evils, for they would then be capable of the greatest good, and that would be fine, but now they cannot do either. They cannot make a man either wise or foolish, but they inflict things haphazardly. Well, then, let's not just trust the likelihood based on painting. You're wrong, sir, if you think that a man who is any good at all should take into account the risk of life or death. He should look to this only in his actions, whether what he does is right or wrong. Thou should eat to live, not live to eat. I know I'm intelligent because I know that I know nothing. Life without enquiry is not worth living. I know that I know nothing. The greatest way to live with honor in this world is to be what we pretend to be. I cannot teach anybody anything, I can only make them think. Socrates. I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing. I was attached to this city by the god. Though it seems a ridiculous thing to say, as upon a great and noble horse which was somewhat sluggish because of its size and needed to be stirred up by a kind of gadfly. It is to fulfill some such function that I believe the god has placed me in the city. I never cease to rouse each and every one of you, to persuade and reproach you all day long, and everywhere I find myself in your company. Contentment is natural wealth. Luxury is artificial poverty. To know is to know that you know nothing. That is the meaning of true knowledge. Man's greatest privilege is the discussion of virtue. Socrates in the Apology. By means of beauty, all beautiful things become beautiful. Wisdom begins in wonder. Socrates.
Please like, share and subscribe our channel and click on bell icon.